This video has become top trending within the Destiny 2 category. It's titled Fixing Destiny 2's Biggest Problem, and it highlights basically the biggest issues with the portal and what needs to be done to fix it. A lot of people are hailing this video as the exact right fix for the portal and the other systems in Destiny 2. Currently, Bungie is, of course, working on some things. They're far away from where it needs to be, though. My biggest gripe has been, of course, power progression being front and center. I wanted to jump into this video, though, and give it my own analysis. So let's start from the very beginning and see what we're cooking up here from Llama.
Quite possibly the most divisive restructuring of Destiny 2 that has ever occurred in the entire history of the game. Never has there been a time where the game has been so dramatically shaken up, causing immense outcry of community feedback and, frankly, resentment to a newly added feature. And
Well, I wouldn't say there's never been a time. I mean, technically, Destiny 2 Year 1 had insane backlash, but it's basically about the equivalent to the launch of Destiny 2 Year 1.
yes, as of the writing of this script, the portal has received its fair share of improvements. It still has a long way to go before its intended purpose is made manifest. And spoiler alert, the portal isn't going anywhere. It's likely that it has been in development for years at the very least, because we first heard of it during this article from the 9th of September 2024. The portal will continue to be a part of the game whether you like it or not.
I actually really like this opinion and this approach because some people have posed the idea of just going back to pre-Edge of Fate. Obviously, the game will get stale if we don't continue to improve the systems and the quality of life features of Destiny 2. So we have to move forward in some way, shape, or form. It just so happens that the portal in its first iteration was way off, way missed the mark. But I do think that there is room for it to possibly work. In fact, I do think there's a stroke of genius to the portal in some ways. It's just the delivery method with power and progression, like power leveling being like the main focus of it, was really where it missed the mark.
However, that doesn't necessarily mean that the game is doomed as a result. That said, the portal in its current iteration has, in all honesty, damaged the game, or at least a large portion of it. Despite this though, the portal itself isn't a bad idea. In fact, I think it's a great idea, if executed correctly, which is the key distinction to what we're dealing with currently. So today, my aim is to show you my proposed rework of how it can be best utilized to improve the game rather than hinder it, because I believe it truly can achieve this given time. In today's video, not only am I going to explain my ideas, but also show them to you with the aid of several custom illustrations created by the wonderful Court Project, who is seriously talented. Together, we have gone all out and created a full restructuring of the entire portal experience, from the main menu, new categories and submenus, UI overhauls, and much more. What you're seeing is just a teaser of what's in store, so please make sure to show Court some love as well, as some of these pieces are truly impressive.
All right, they actually really cooked here. You can tell they put together a big project, so we're going to take it seriously and we're going to dive into each topic and see what they're cooking up exactly.
The more big videos like these take quite a lot of time and effort to theorize, record, illustrate, edit, all the works. In fact, it has taken us around 2 weeks to put this all together. So if you end up strongly resonating with today's content and want to support the channel so we can continue to make more of these high production projects in the future, consider leaving a super thanks down in the comments below, as both myself and the team would seriously appreciate it. With that being said though, let's begin by discussing what the portal is currently and why it is bad. Right now, the portal is the main way to engage with the game. Any activity that's present within the portal can be played to earn gear and progress your character's level, including the new destination from the Edge of Fate, Kepler. Portal activities are also the only way to obtain weapons and armor that are part of the new tier system. So basically, if you find an activity that isn't in the portal, such as nightmare hunts on the moon, playing this activity will not offer tiered rewards or allow said rewards to offer a power increase. Only activities that are exclusively in the portal fit this criteria. More generally,
And that is why one of the biggest problems that was brought up is that about 80% of the game currently isn't in the portal, which probably is the second most important point, because we basically have sunsetting 2.0 with the introduction of the portal, where the raids have no meaning right now. You can't get any tiered loot other than, I guess, going in and getting raid exotics, but some of these raids have been in the game for so many years now that most of you probably have the exotic at this stage. So there needs to be tiered loot in all of Destiny 2. It shouldn't just be a very select portion of activities.
Portal is also a way for older seasonal content which was previously removed to rotate back into the game permanently. Examples include the Echoes Battlegrounds, Plunder Expeditions, and Savathûn Spire, to name a few. Lastly, most of the Portal activities feature the brand new activity customization and scoring feature that allow you to tweak with the difficulty of them by adding modifiers, positive or negative, and you're encouraged to play with the system to tailor your activities to your specific needs, with the modifiers you apply heavily influencing the quality of the loot you earn. And that's basically the Portal. So why is this bad? For starters, so much of the rest of the game's content is not in the Portal, including 9 raids and 10 dungeons, and no, the dungeon layers don't count. The majority of the available Nightfall strikes, 21 missing to be exact, Gambit, 5 exotic missions,
Honestly, keep Gambit out of the Portal. All right, we could just sunset Gambit, in my opinion.
including Derealize, and fun fact, at time of writing, Barrow Dyad from Episode Heresy is still completely unobtainable, campaigns, and other offensives like Dares of Eternity. The aforementioned missing content cannot increase your power level as a result, and is basically entirely irrelevant, and playing it has absolutely no benefit to the reward chase. The armor that drops isn't tiered and uses the old Armor 2.0 system, which is bad. The weapons aren't tiered either, though admittedly they do still retain their value because obviously some guns are still pretty good and enhanceable. Think Velocity Baton or Hezen Vengeance, for example, though this is still not ideal. Basically, the first half of the problem boils down to the fact that outside of the Portal's limited selection of activities, nothing else in the game matters with regards to increasing your character's level, improving your arsenal, and so on. It's like the Portal and the World Tab / Director are two entirely separate games, because they literally are. Everything you could do before Edge of Fate came out, including grinding weapons and armor, can still be done. You can still get Armor 2.0 if you really want to. You can still get all the old weapons that can be enhanced and so on, which is fine to a degree, but it ultimately leads to confusion. The second half is to do with how activities in the Portal are launched, the ever so tedious modifier selection screen. I'm of the stance that while yes, giving players more agency and freedom to tailor an activity to their specific playstyle and expectations is a good idea in principle, in practice it just straight up doesn't work. It is so tedious to decide which modifiers to use, which ones increase my score, trying to make sure I don't make the activity too hard, while also making sure my projected score stays within the range I want it. And half the time, the scoring system doesn't correctly predict what you're actually going to get anyway. It just creates so much unnecessary thinking when I wish I could just pick an activity, choose between a selection of difficulties like Master, Grandmaster, or Ultimate that I know will guarantee me good rewards, then off I go. Minimal clicks, minimal friction.
See, what they tried to do with that was give us a significantly higher degree of player agency. So you can customize the activity to whatever your liking is. Maybe you like a certain build, or maybe you like a certain movement style. And I don't think that player agency was really what it needed. What I think it needed more than anything, and the two could be in tandem to some degree, is it needed more variety in each instance, so that way it felt more fresh. So you kind of get that effect to some degree when you select these modifiers on here, because when you load into the activity, you know, one time you can have on certain modifiers and play a certain way with a certain build, and another time you could have on different modifiers, etc., right? And so it will play slightly different from each instance to each instance. And in doing so, it basically makes the grind in Destiny 2, where you have to grind, let's say you have to grind a certain strike 50 times or something, right? It makes it significantly less tedious when you're on like the 33rd time doing that strike, when there is, you know, some variance to it. It's a little bit more refreshing. It's less of a mindless, you know, soulless grind where you're just doing it not because you really enjoy it anymore. You're just doing it because you really want the exact weapon. And I think that that makes a lot of people resentful of Destiny 2. They kind of come to terms and realization with their Destiny addiction, how they're kind of playing the game just because they're addicted to the game, not necessarily because they're enjoying it. And so Bungie, what they needed to do was make it so you could play the game like those 50 strikes, for example, and every time from the first one to the 33rd one to the 50th one will feel and look different. It's going to be different ads that you're running into, different, you know, they started to do this with like Banes, right? And Banes are not a perfect fix by any means, but it at least adds some variety when you go out there. Like there's some different Banes. Some of the Banes I absolutely hate. I hate Drain Banes, right? But some of them are also fun. Like the one that like blows up and randomly explodes. Like that kind of adds a crazy chaotic element to the encounter. You know, that guy was normally not there the last time we were here, right? That variety within each encounter just spices things up a little bit. I'm not saying that Banes save the game by any means, or that Banes are a perfect fix, but we do need a little bit of variety. So that way, if you're going to, like what Bungie wants us to do, grind an activity 50 times, it doesn't feel so mindless and soulless. So agency wasn't the most important thing in my opinion, the customizability. It's just the replayability and it feeling fresh was really what they needed to focus on more so.
Previous Grandmaster Nightfalls were an excellent example of this, and people loved it. Just one glance at the GM report leaderboards will show you that hundreds of players held this activity so incredibly dear and made it their main way of interacting with the game, which is sadly now gone. So altogether, the current portal creates a disjointed experience that separates the content that arguably made the game special in the first place from offering any meaningful progression, while also ruining some of the charm the game previously had. Me personally, I don't like being greeted by the portal when I log on. I'd much prefer being greeted with the director just like before. So, how do we begin to fix these problems? Well, first of all, it's important to understand what the philosophy of the portal is, and what exactly it's trying to achieve. So, let's begin with part 1, the philosophy of the portal. My belief is that
This is good. We got to create a working definition of the philosophy of what the portal is meant to accomplish.
at least partially, Bungie envisioned the portal to be a place like the Helm or the Lost City that could serve as the main seasonal/weekly hub without having to be an actual physical location that players could visit, and more generally, a nice place to organize current and previous seasonal content that also allows efficient funneling of player populations to what's currently relevant and worth playing. The advantage of the portal, however, is that because it's a menu and not a physical location, year over year, the activities that come along seasonally don't have to be retired and can instead live within the portal forever. Just think how many times the Helm got refreshed with new rooms to the left, right, and back year on year with each coming season. And now imagine how much simpler that would be to organize with a menu rather than a physical location. So, my overarching proposition for what the portal should be is this. Rather than the game being playable only through the portal should exclusively serve as an organization hub for seasonal and weekly content, where said content can still be manually accessed from the director, just made easier via the portal. I truly believe that the portal can work really well if it's treated solely as an organization tool for particularly relevant activities, not as the only avenue to play the game and progress. As a result, the portal and the rest of the game will still remain as separate systems. However, the portal deals only with organization whose sole purpose is guiding players to what is currently worth playing in that particular week or season. This also means that outside of the portal, you can now play the game and earn power/progress your character through activities that aren't within it. And to communicate this better, we're now moving into part 2 of the rework presentation. Currently,
Okay, so far so good.
I personally feel the portal UI isn't exactly flattering and could do with some much needed polish. It feels very separate from the beautiful director UI that has greeted us for so many years, and I believe that in order for me to communicate this new vision most effectively, it's time to start flexing some graphics. So let's start at the top with priority number 1, portal access. In my opinion, the director should always be the home screen of the game, and in this vision, it is. But there's just a giant button for the portal right in the middle, as well as Kepler, which really should have been there from the
Yes, this is awesome.
start. So step 1 of the overall presentation, make the director the default, then have the portal still being obviously there. As you can see here, Kepler fits right in, and there's ample space for other well-known locations like the Dreadnought and even the Reef, as seen in this new vision. Next up, I want to discuss redistributing exactly what's in the portal. As a result of me wanting the portal to be more of a weekly/seasonal hub, there's plenty.
First off, I want to say about the last image that looked really nice. I enjoyed that addition to the current existing world tab, and the portal does look very soulless, so I actually enjoyed this quite a bit. This right here, this is exactly what we need. Kepler, technically speaking, is like really far away, but you know, it's Destiny 2, it's space magic, whatever. We could just have Kepler be right there. I don't think anyone's going to complain too much about it.
Vision. Next up, I want to discuss redistributing exactly what's in the portal. As a result of me wanting the portal to be more of a weekly/seasonal hub, there's plenty of activities that are in it that simply don't need to be in there anymore. And because I want a renewed or returned focus to the director, any activity that can appear in the portal will have their nodes moved to their corresponding destinations. For example, consider hovering over the Europa map, panning left, and seeing Solo Ops Creation just chilling there. Or same goes for Savathun's Iron Spire on the Throne World next to the Sanctum, Caldera for Kepler right in the middle, and so on. A refreshed director always brings more life into the game, and it would be awesome to see the Dreadnought hanging near Saturn's orbit, allowing you to select things like the Nether, Court of Blades, or the Sunless Cell from within its director menu. The Cosmodrome could also be extended to accommodate the Plague Lands, including all 3 Reclaim variants and the Heliostat exotic mission, and a node for the Reef can be added to accommodate things like Contest of Elders, Kel's Vengeance, or Warden of Nothing. It just adds so much more life and vibrance to the game if the director is continually updated. Here's a full shot of what it could look like, and at least in my opinion, Kepler fits right in, and so too do the Dreadnought and the Reef. So now that we've kitted out the director, it's time to dive inside the portal and find out what's changed in my new and improved vision. My idea is simple. The new portal screen features 4 activity categories and 4 singular activity nodes, all on the same page, including seasonal, fireteam, pinnacle, and endgame ops categories, then a daily rotating solo op, which could be K1 Logistics, Caldera, or new ones, a weekly Grandmaster Nightfall node, identical to the previous weekly GM Nightfall consisting of exclusively strikes and battlegrounds, a weekly featured Crucible mode, which could be Mayhem, Countdown, etc., then lastly a node for Gambit. This new screen would feature detailed explanations on exactly what each category and focus node entails. Feel free to pause and have a read if you'd like, as well as a new boon selector which will allow you to activate positive modifiers for all featured activities, but more details on this later. I'll leave the full illustration on screen a little longer for you to fully take it in, but now let's...
This looks good. This looks very clean. And if you're trying to have a very frictionless menu to select on, like what you would select on with the portal right now, right? This looks better, and this is very streamlined. You can see exactly what you're doing. On the left, you have seasonal ops, fireteam ops, pinnacle ops, endgame ops, okay? The solo op rotating is very good. Obviously, I tease about Gambit getting deleted, but, you know, if Gambit was brought up into the portal, that would be nice. The thing that should be said, though, is that it would take, obviously, a lot of developmental effort because you're going to have to update all of that loot now, and then you have to, all that loot has to be updated to the new system, so the armor has to be updated, and it has to have new set bonuses, and then the Gambit has to have new weapons and stuff like that. So I'm sure that if Bungie had the manpower, they probably would have delivered more into the portal. Like, I'm not giving them a complete pass, like, hey, you guys had to have 2 layoffs, so therefore you get a pass for, you know, delivering what you did with the Edge of Fate. But, you know, these things also do take more developmental effort, you know, just as a, I guess, looking at the other side of things, right?
Discuss exactly what each node and category entails, starting with Seasonal Ops. Seasonal Ops is a new category that always contains every non-raid and dungeon activity from the newest expansion/current season, and in our case, this would include the Civ, Caldera, all Reclaim variants, and the Heliostat exotic mission that drop a mixture of bonus loot and a daily bonus focus. And in my mind, this category would refresh its offerings every 6 months alongside each new season, and the major update within said season would add its own activities to the mix. This graphic shows a mixture of Reclamation Act 1 activities, including the Civ and Caldera, as well as from Act 2 Ash and Iron, like all 3 Reclaims and Heliostat. This category would also allow the user to toggle between Act 1, Act 2, or all activities within it as a way of having a clean and manageable UI experience. Fireteam.
That's actually really nice, and in the process, you would, if you just like, I'm tired of playing old stuff, right? So you're like, listen, Bungie, you're not selling me with these years old missions and things like that. Well, you would have literally a node you can select to, and it's basically like, here's all the new stuff, right? If you just wanted to play specifically new things, you're sick and tired of being force-fed the same activity you played 4 years ago. Well, at least there's an actual node with just all new stuff. That's actually pretty nice. I like that. Seasonal Ops one so far, so good.
Ops returns in its current form and consists of a list of 3 Fireteam Ops that can be farmed for bonus drops and a daily bonus focus. Though the key difference...
So Menagerie added in there? This man's going too far. I love this. This would be absolutely peak, but I know that would be probably too much to ask Bungie for the Menagerie. Oh my god.
The current iteration of Fireteam Ops we have is that my version now includes 6-player Fireteam activities like Dares of Eternity, the Menagerie, or even Escalation Protocol as seen in this graphic here. Hopes and prayers.
That would be peak too. That would be nice to bring all of these back. That would be asking Bungie a lot in the current status, right?
as for those last two, and also event-limited activities like Haunted Altars, and the selection of activities refreshes daily. Pinnacle Ops are again similar to what we have currently, offering a selection of 3 activities from the likes of exotic missions, onslaughts, and crawls like the Coil or Contest of Elders, featuring bonus drops and a daily bonus focus that also refresh daily, including the likes of Dual Destiny. And also, my version excludes the presence of dungeon layers. In fact, I'm opting to completely remove dungeon layers from the game, as I don't think they've landed particularly well, and also because of the 4th and final category, Endgame Ops. Endgame Ops will feature a list of several raid and dungeon activities that can be farmed for bonus drops, including full clears, boss rushes, and pantheons, where this time the selection refreshes weekly rather than daily, in an effort to bring back the weekly rotating raids and dungeons that we previously had. We've also gone ahead and created a little tooltip that describes what exactly you may find inside this category. Again, pause if you want to have a read, and examples include a full run of Sundered Doctrine, epic Ghosts of the Deep, a Root of Nightmares boss rush where you skip encounters 1 and 2 and just focus on the bosses, or a full Rulk Indomitable Pantheon where each of these activities come with various bonus rewards, bonus focuses, and deeply rich customization options.
Okay, now this man is absolutely cooking with this right here. Holy.
Going a little off track for a second, these additions aren't necessarily to do with the portal, but I still wanted to highlight them because, again, Court has made some fantastic graphics for them. You'll notice that the full run activities have a settings wheel within them, which in our vision would lead to a sub-menu that allows you to, number 1, select your checkpoint, where in this example we have Salvation's Edge starting from the 2nd checkpoint, Herald of Finality, including loot table information on the right-hand side, as well as another menu to
That would be insane levels of transparency. I love that.
Your feat selection, presenting information about reward quality and more. Again, pause if you need to. Like I said, these systems aren't exactly Portal specific, but still worth highlighting because A, we kinda need them, and B, the graphics are awesome. Alright then, now let's discuss the 4 activity nodes that sit alongside the activity categories, starting with the daily rotating solo op. This node will feature a single solo op that offers bonus rewards and a bonus focus that rotates daily. It's pretty simple, but that's all it should be. Still the same quick 10-minute commitment that Bungie described as a way to jump in, get some progression done, then get out. Following that, we then have the classic weekly Nightfall, a single Vanguard op, either a strike or a battleground that offers bonus drops, plentiful endgame resources like Ascendant Shards, Prisms, and Exotics, as well as a pinnacle weapon focus that can be farmed indefinitely. This activity refreshes weekly, just like the previous GM Nightfalls, and to keep things challenging, the tuning for this activity would be slightly more strict than that of regular ultimate activities we have now, since they're kind of a pushover, but feel free to disagree with me down in the comments below. Destiny 2 desperately needs a weekly chase like GM Nightfall's back, and while I do admit that a lot of what I say here today will likely never get implemented, I still want to stress that as a bare minimum, a weekly chase equivalent to GM's that features a focus drop, plentiful resources, and is a decent challenge must make its way back into the game somehow. Moving on, the weekly Crucible playlist node will feature a singular Crucible mode like Mayhem that offers bonus drops and a daily bonus focus, which rotates weekly. Finally, the Gambit node will simply allow access to Gambit from within the portal, which can also be done via the Director that also features a daily bonus focus. And yeah, it goes without saying that Gambit now offers tiered gear and power level increases. Gambit could also be expanded to feature Gambit weeks, where for 1 week only every so often, the Gambit node offers many more bonus drops and increased resources, just as an idea. Same could apply to both the Crucible and GM nodes too, kind of like the old double loot, double reputation weeks. I want to be very clear though, all of these activities that rotate in are always accessible, regardless of whether they're featured in the portal or not. You can simply find them on their respective planets or sections within the Director. It's just that when they are featured, they're more worth doing because of that. And side note,
that is so perfect. Yeah, what he just said is exactly what I think should happen. Everything is in the portal. Everything is updated to the new system. Obviously, that takes a lot more developmental effort. Let's just, let's make sure we cover that, our tracks first with that. Bungie should have never launched this new system, this new tiered armor system, without the ability to bring up the loot of all the activities that, like, they knew that it was going to be like soft sunsetting 2.0. Like, it was going to be disastrous, right? But let's say they are able to bring everything up to a certain degree. Then this menu in the portal is just highlighting things that give bonus drops. And it's basically creating certain feature or certain activities within a rotation to funnel people into these activities to get people playing, like I said before, different activities every day or every week because different modifiers are on, different bonus drops are coming from these activities. So basically, you actually get more out of the activities rather than like, I'll give you a good example, like Vault of Glass being there this week and last week and the week before that. And, 3 months ago is the same Vault of Glass. Like not a whole lot is changing. Sometimes there would be like, they would do like challenges, weekly challenges within the raid, but not enough changes from week to week. So changing things like this where you're getting enhanced bonus drops is significantly better. And it basically just allows Bungie to put a magnifying glass on different sections of the game and get people's attention to everything that's in the game currently. So far, this has absolutely nailed it.
Note, if an activity is featured, it will also indicate this on the director with a clearly defined icon or multiple of them above the relevant destination. For example, this blue icon indicates that a featured activity is present within Savathun's throne world, and upon further investigation, we can see that the birthplace of the Vile Strike is currently active within the portal and as such will drop improved rewards. More on this very shortly in the reward section, but that's the general idea. The portal streamlines the experience of finding what's relevant on any given day, but even without interacting with the portal, you can still find what's relevant via the director, and it's glaringly obvious at that. Speaking of featured activities, let's discuss how I'm changing the distribution of rewards in this new version of the portal to make it so it is still worth interacting with and checking what's available. In my version, rewards for activities will behave much like they do now. Any activity that can rotate into the portal, even if it isn't featured on a given day, still drops 2 or 3 powerful rewards upon completion that can simply be accessed from within its destination or location on the director. But for when it is featured, the activity now offers more completion rewards than it normally does, depending on the activity and category/rotator. For example, the daily solo op will always drop 2 rewards rather than 1, like its worldly counterparts when it is featured. Then for seasonal activities, think Reclaim and Heliostat, currently they both drop 3 and 2 rewards respectively, but in my system they would drop 4 and 3, incentivizing you to try the new stuff and also be rewarded for it, for as long as they remain in the seasonal category. So basically,
That's exactly the way it should be.
the seasonal ops tab is generally more rewarding for the duration of a major update/season when compared to similar activities outside of it, again to incentivize playing the new stuff. The same goes for Pinnacle Ops. They would typically have 1 or 2 more completion rewards attached to them if present within the portal on that day, though this also introduces the possibility with things like the Coil, where you could really juice it and give it like 8 completion rewards rather than 4 when it rotates in, to really push people to play it. Furthermore, outside of the portal, all raids and dungeons can be completed once per week for an offering of +3 gear for each encounter completion, including an additional full clear bonus chest and bonus focus. However, the key distinction is that the selection of rad content within the endgame ops category and the newest raid or dungeon can be farmed indefinitely rather than just once, also for +3s, including the bonus focuses, weekly tier upgrade challenges, and so on. Here's some more examples like Last Wish, with indicators that make it abundantly clear it's farmable and currently featured. Same goes for Vow of the Disciple, including a bonus focus for submission, or Warlord's Ruin, with a bonus focus for the Goat Indebted Kindness. The power grind can also be extended to literally anything. I personally think it could be awesome to have things like complete 10 patrols on the Cosmodrome and receive a powerful drop for every 2 that you do, complete Pale Heart overthrows for powerfuls, dual Destiny class items drop as powerful, and many more such cases. The ultimate goal is that you can play your way, but the portal still offers a more efficient weekly and seasonal path. Another important factor that will 100% reinvigorate the reward chase is adding activity-exclusive rewards. Think strike-specific loot, but more so in the form of curated roles like back in the day, for each activity that rotates into the portal. But the catch
This is an interesting idea. I like this.
is you can't earn this special drop unless the activity is featured. Imagine that Caldera offered a special version of Giver's Blessing with a really low drop chance that came with attrition orbs in the left column and a second selectable origin trait, something like nanotech tracer missiles, that you could only get from this activity only when it's featured. Any other version of the gun obtained elsewhere won't have this special role ever, which I personally think is a pretty good idea. Now, I know that
Now, it is a really good idea. I think it's interesting. People might complain about FOMO, I guess, if they couldn't log in during that period of time. But I do really like the idea of there being even more rare weapons. Obviously, they're not, locking it behind an activity that's so difficult to clear. They're just making it a specific drop during a very maybe odd part of the week, or maybe a specific day. Who knows the exact parameters he's using for this one? I don't know if he was doing a daily rotation or weekly rotation, but it is a really interesting idea to have even more variety within the loot pool, to have these like curated drops, these like really crazy god rolls. And it would also help potentially invigorate the player base during low points, right? Like on a Monday, when the population lately on Mondays has been hitting like 15K, 16K, maybe there's like, hey, maybe a crazy weapon is dropping. You got 24 hours left to get it, right? That could help, boost player population and get people online during those really low points when there's a big slump in the game.
Yes, there are a lot of activities, so not all of them need to have a special curated drop, at least initially, which honestly makes it better and more rare. Just something extra to keep an eye out for every once in a while. Veteran players will remember that Gnawing Hunger had a special variant that came with Overflow in the left column that only dropped from Tier 3 Reckoning when the Likeness of Oryx was the weekly boss. And I can tell you from personal experience that the drop rate was so very low. I farmed for hours and hours, and when I did eventually get it, it was a very good feeling. In fact, I still have it sitting in my vault to this very day. The one type of activity that I do want to have exclusive drops for each one are conquests, which I do think are pretty good. A tailored experience with challenging deltas and modifiers is fun, at least to me, so to make them extra worth it, tie a unique drop to each of them and make it a low chance from farms, but make it worth the grind, especially if it involves farming something like the recent Avalon conquest. Bonus points if you can remember the name of this gun. Drop it in the comments if you do.
Was that Pluperfect? And I do think this is an interesting idea, simply because when you're doing these really challenging activities, it's nice for there to be like an added incentive, like an added carrot on the end of the stick.
That's basically all I would do when it comes to rewards and reward allocation, plus giving reasons to interact with portal activities that rotate in and out. And I'll reiterate the main point, you should still have the ability to play essentially anything you want and gain power from it. Most importantly, raids and dungeons. And you can still launch any activity that isn't featured in the portal on any given day and still get power and tiered gear from it. However, if you decide to play the featured activities instead, you'll receive a greater quantity of rewards as well as a low chance at a super special drop that can only be farmed when the given activity is featured. The last part of my rework concerns a selection of key quality of life improvements that I believe would make the experience of interacting with the portal a whole lot smoother, with the first major change being the removal of the ability to choose your own modifiers. A little bit dramatic, I know, but stick with me here. While yes, it does sound nice in theory to be able to tailor the activities to your preferences, it ultimately leads to choosing the same 4 or 5 modifiers for every single activity that secures the path of least resistance when it comes to ensuring score and reward quality, which also adds yet another step in between choosing said activity and actually launching it, which is especially demoralizing on update days with new content where you want to just jump straight in and get some gear, but your excitement is immediately halted because you need to rack your brain about which modifiers to use and so on, and as such, the feature needs to go. My system takes us back to
Well, that's why they do have a match-made system in there. And to play devil's advocate for just a moment here with this one, is that the ability to customize the activity kind of functions in the same way like builds do in Destiny 2. Sure, there's like, 20 different Titan builds that you could use right now that are all viable, right? But there's really just like one Titan build right now, right? Like we're just using Behemoth right now. Like it's absolutely busted, of course. Behemoth with Syntheseps is, it overshadows all the other Titan builds. But that's not to say that you cannot use another Titan build. You do have the agency to use other builds if you just get so tired of using the same thing, or maybe becoming an absolute slave to just the meta build, right? And so similarly, you can select just the most optimized modifiers, but you'll notice that maybe not everyone cares so much about optimization. Some people want some variety, and some people maybe have a different playstyle than others. I would imagine that like speedrunners have a different prioritization when it comes to modifiers than like hyper casual, 50-year-old gamers that hop onto Destiny 2, right? Like they're going to have a different perspective of what is most optimal for them based on, their play style, their builds, their awareness of how the Destiny 2 meta and sandbox in the game works. So I actually don't necessarily agree with getting rid of all of the customization, because that agency is there, and you do have the match made option. If you just want to like mindlessly just click and go, you just click the match made and just launch into something.
selected modifiers that, for the sake of variety, rotate on a weekly or daily basis depending on the activity or node. And while we're at it, let's remove the scoring system too, and instead tie the quality of the rewards we get to the actual difficulty of the activity itself. Activity difficulty selection should be simple to understand and simple to apply, and I just know that I would much prefer having it so higher difficulties, like Ultimate, always drop tier 5s, and easier difficulties, like Expert or Master, always drop lower tiered gear. Those still have a small chance to improve the tier up to a tier 5. I'm still a believer that each unique difficulty should be locked behind power progression though, so higher tier gear remains being tied to power in a way, but more so to unlock the method of getting them. Speaking of power, in an effort to retain some level of activity customization and reward players who climb to higher power levels, I want to propose a solution that achieves both the goal of increased player agency and reduced friction when launching a given activity. Enter the Boon Selector. The Boon Selector is a new submenu within the portal that unlocks once you hit power level 470, aka around the point you're comfortably into your ultimate difficulty activities, that now allows you to permanently choose a selection of 3 positive modifiers that will always be applied to any portal activity you play, disregarding Crucible. Furthermore, because we remove the scoring system, these positive modifiers don't negatively affect your rewards in any shape or form, and simply allow you to gain combat advantages or have some more fun in whatever activity you play, including raids and dungeons, by the way. For example, your loadout could consist of something like Solar Surge, Grappler, and Brawler to fully enhance a Solar Titan Bonk Hammer build to the absolute extreme, and other more recent modifiers like the Plasma Accelerant from Reclaim that grants permanent Amplified and Radiant, or the Ionic Recharger that makes your bolt charge detonations super juiced and create a landfall explosion could also be moved into this menu, alongside event modifiers too, like for Solstice or Festival of the Lost. I think this would be an awesome way of rewarding players who climb to higher power levels, and again, it's only applicable to activities featured in the portal. Lastly, matchmaking. Make matchmaking available for all activities except dungeons and raids. There's no excuse for any other activity, regardless of difficulty, to not have matchmaking. It's not that deep, and again, removes another barrier to entry. It's quality of life things like this that I truly think would make the portal an unstoppable, world-class support system that I'm certain was what Bungie always intended. It's just unfortunate that they've had so many stumbles along the way, but that's what they've got us for. I believe nothing can stop a passionate enough community, and I hope that what you've seen in today's video proves that. To conclude, let's do a quick recap of the important topics. The portal should become a system that focuses on weekly, daily, and seasonal bonus activities where everything else in the game can still offer power as well, especially raids and dungeons. However, the portal itself features exclusive and more plentiful rewards, as well as custom experiences like boss rushes and pantheons, and a unique positive modifier selection system that serves only to round out builds and enhance the fun factor, instead of causing unnecessary headaches and time wasting. The rest of the game outside of the portal can still be grinded for power and progression, as well as offering tiered gear, relevant resources, and matchmaking. There's still a clear highlight on newer content within the seasonal ops category, and the director is restored to its former glory as the homepage of the game. And with that, we've come to the end of the video. I really hope you enjoyed this one, as it's taken a...
That was a really good video. I actually agree with the majority of everything that was presented there. Fixing Destiny 2's biggest problem, the portal obviously needs a rework, and it just needs a whole new vision. I do think that if I could add to this, or maybe give my opinion adjacent to this, it would be that power leveling needs to be basically just removed from Destiny 2. I really think it has no place in the game. Bungie experimented with removing it previously, and people really liked it. Maybe they panicked when they saw that the average, player session time went down by 5% because fewer people were doing pinnacles when they logged in on Tuesday Reset, perhaps. But I really think that you need to make the game about engaging activities, fun gameplay, grinding, powerful loot, really cool builds, constantly refreshing the game with new activities. I know this is a crazy foreign idea, right? But new activities is how you're going to get new players into the game. It's new activities is how you're going to get existing players excited about the game. We need more new activities. And of course, you can add all these modifiers and all these things to make the existing content more replayable. Destiny 2, it's going to be a grinding game. You're going to be investing a lot more time in this game than you will your average game that you log into, right? And that's okay. We accept that. We're, Destiny 2 players. We know that going into it, right? Destiny 2 is not the game that you play hyper casually. Okay, it's not for you if that is the approach you're taking for it, or at least you're just not going to get that like maximum enjoyment out of it. So we know how people are going to play Destiny 2, and power and progression is not power leveling is just not what we want to be the focal point of Destiny 2. We need engaging activities. And so the portal, all these changes, these are good. These need to happen, but Bungie does need to have a renewed vision and a clear understanding of how new content needs to come into the game. New content doesn't save Destiny 2, but these changes to the portal in tandem with a bunch of new content would actually see a massive change in the game. I don't know if we'll ever get there. Obviously, we're dealing with, post a bunch of layoffs from the studio, and maybe we have to readjust our standards of what we can expect from Bungie. But it feels like they could definitely do better than what they've been doing. But let me know what you think about it down in the comment section below. How did you feel about Llama's video here, fixing Destiny 2's biggest problem? And as always, make sure you subscribe to the channel. We'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Later.